Hello everyone! What's going on? Alvian here. I hope all of you are doing well and keep on learning and building new things with code. In this video, we are going to continue to explore the modern collection view architecture that has been introduced by Apple in iOS 14. So, what exactly is the modern collection view architecture? Based on diagram shown by Apple WWDC 2020 session Advances in Collection View, it contains three main parts. First, the data is populated using Divable Data Source and Section Snapshots API. Second, the layout is configured using the Compositional layout with flexibility to compose per section layout and also using list configuration to display lists in collection view instead of using table view. Finally, the cell presentation is configured using the new content configuration API and list cell. For this video, we are going to focus on two components. First, showing a list in collection view using compositional layout list configuration. Second, set up cell presentation using the new content configuration API and list cell. We'll be exploring the Divable Data Source API and non-based list compositional layout in the upcoming video, so stay tuned. Let me show you the demo of the collection view list that we will build. Here, we have a list of characters rendered in collection view. It has multiple sections with a section header showing the category for each section. The cell contains the following components: primary label, secondary label, image view, accessories, for checkmark, and disclosure indicator. At the navigation bar, we have a segmented control containing 4 options for the list style appearance. Each time I select a different style, the list and the cell will automatically adjust their style appearance to match the selected style. As you can see from the demo, with this, we can actually replace table view and use collection view instead. We don't have to worry about the default cell state and behavior, as the API provides the same style and state behavior. Okay, that's it for the demo. Pretty interesting, right? Let's begin to implement it from scratch. You'll be amazed that the implementation is actually pretty simple with almost 0 lines of UI layout code. To begin, please download the starter project from the GitHub repository I have provided in the description below. This project is based on the UI collection view from scratch tutorial series. You can click on the link to the tutorial if you are interested to learn how to implement UI collection view with flow layout and UI collection view data source from scratch. Now, open the starter project in Xcode and navigate to the character list view controller zip file. Here, I have provided a UI view controller that uses a collection view as its main subview. At the top, we have a navigation bar containing a UI segmented control with 4 list style options: inset, plain, group, and sidebar. There's a property named section characters that represents sections with characters in 2-dimensional array. I've already provided the stubs for this. In this case, I'm stubbing it using Final Fantasy Remake stubs. I've also provided the CVUI live preview provider for this view controller, so we can preview it in Xcode directly. Okay, before we begin, I want to give you a brief summary about the 2 new components that we will use. The first one is the UI collection view list cell, which is a subclass of UI collection view cell. It is a collection view cell that provides list features and default styling. If you are familiar using the system-provided table view cell style, Apple provides 4 system styles: default, subtitle, value 1, and value 2. And this is the code that we usually use to configure the cell with default system style. Using the cell text label, detail text label, and image view properties, we assign the text and image to the cell. Apple has provided a warning that these properties will soon be deprecated in the future, and encourage us to migrate to the list content configuration API. With the new collection view list cell, we won't be directly accessing the labels and image view inside the content view. Instead, we will use the list content configuration struct. To do this, first we need to retrieve the list cell default content configuration. The default content configuration will be based on the list style that we used to configure the compositional list layout. More on this later. The list content configuration provides us the properties that we can use to describe the content and styling that will be rendered, such as text, secondary text, image, layout metrics, and behaviors, depending on the state. You can think this as a view model. The content configuration is a struct, so it will always return a first copy that we can mutate without introducing set effects. Also, we don't need to worry about the performance, as the content configuration is very lightweight and inexpensive. After we configure the content configuration, finally, we just need to assign it to the cell content configuration property. UIKit will handle everything for us, from creating the content view, managing the layout of the labels and image, assigning them with the value from the configuration. Okay, to begin, let's declare the cell registration properties. I've covered the modern cell registration API from the previous video tutorial. You can click on the link to the tutorial if you want to learn more about how to implement the cell registration API. Below the section characters property, declare a new property named cell registration with the type of UICollectionView cell registration. For the generic parameters, let's fill it with the UICollectionView list cell. And for the model, we are going to use the character struct. Let's assign it with default value of nil. And for the next property, declare a property name list appearance with the type of UI collection layout list configuration dot appearance, and the default value will be inset grouped. Okay, this will be the list style we are going to use to configure the list compositional layout later. Next, declare a lazy property named list layout with the type of UI collection view layout. Assign it with closure block. Let's make some space here. There are two ways to declare the list compositional layout. First is using the UI collection view compositional layout list method, passing the list configuration. We can use this if our list has the same layout for all the sections, and the list style appearance never changes. Second is by using the UI collection view compositional layout section provider initializer. This is pretty usable if our app has different layout per each section, like Apple App Store. In this case, we just need to provide a closure, and then based on the section and index passed, we create a NS collection layout section and return it. We can use the NS collection layout section.list for the list layout, passing the list configuration with our appearance list style. Let's go for the second approach, as our list appearance can be changed dynamically when the user selects from the segmented control. Okay, let me resize this a little bit. And here we just need to return UI collection view compositional layout by initializing it with the section provider initializer. Here we need to pass the closure, it passed the section, and the layout environment. We can ignore the section as we are going to use the same layout for each section. Next, we need to declare a property named listConfig and assign it with UI collection layout list configuration, passing the list appearance property. Finally, we need to declare the NS collection layout section using this list, passing the configuration, this config, and as well as the layout environment. That's it for the list layout initialization. The list configuration also provides the customization option for header, footer, separator, and set action provider. We'll configure the supplementary header later. Okay, now let's move on to the setup collection view method. First, we need to initialize the collection view, passing the view bounds and the list layout that we created before. And next, we need to set the background color to system background and set the auto resizing mask to array of flexible width and flexible height auto resizing masks. Finally, we need to add the collection view as the subview of the view controller's view. Next, let's move on to the cell registration configuration. Assign the cell registration property with the UI collection view cell registration, and using the handler initializer, we pass a handler closure. The UI collection view cell will be the UI collection view with cell, and we don't need the index path, so we can ignore this. And for the model, we will use the character struct. Inside the closure, we need to get the list content configuration struct and configure it. There are two ways to retrieve it. First, we can access the list cell default content configuration method. By using this, we will get the pre-configured style content configuration based on the list style configuration appearance that we pass when configuring the list layout. Second, we can use the UI list content configuration static factory method. It provides many options such as cell, value cell, set bearer cell, event, group header, group footer. This is useful if we don't want the cell to use the pre-configured style from the list. In this case, we're going to use the first option, which is to use the cell default content configuration. This will return a first copy of the struct that we can configure. Declare a content property and can assign it using the cell default content configuration. First, let's assign the text with the character's name. And then let's assign the secondary text with the character job. This is actually an optional. For the image property, we can initialize it using UI image name initializer, passing the character image name to retrieve the image from XC assets. As our image is rounded, we also need to configure the image view corner radius. Because we don't have direct access to the image view, we can use the content image properties. In this case, let's set a maximum size of 60 by 60 and set the corner radius to 30. At last, we just need to set the cell content configuration property with the content that we just configured. That's it for content configuration inside the list cell. Okay, next we need to set the collection view data source as the view controller as well as the delegate. Okay, let's remove this to-do placeholder, clean up this white space, and declare an extension of character list view controller that conforms to UI collection view data source as well as UI collection view delegate. First, we need to override the number of sections in collection view. Here we can just return the section characters array count. Next, we need to override the number of items in section inside the collection view. Here, let's retrieve the item from the outer array using the section, and we can access the characters inner array that count property. And next, we need to override the cell for item at index path. Here we need to dequeue the cell, and we can use the collection view dequeue configured reusable cell. Here we just need to pass the cell registration property and the index path, and to retrieve the item or the character we can use section characters index path dot section dot characters index path dot item, and we can pass it to this item parameter. Finally, we need to return the cell. We should be able to build this and run this inside the live preview. Nice, the list is rendered perfectly inside the collection view. Okay, I just want to remind you that we don't write any UI layout related code to configure the list cell. We are witnessing the power of the list content configuration API. Let's move on to add the support for the header. Okay, now let's move on to the top of the file below the cell registration properties and declare a header registration with the type of UICollectionView supplementary registration. For the reusable view, we actually can use the UICollectionView list cell also and assign it with the default value of nil here. Next, let's move to the setup collection view below the cell registration assignment. Here we need to assign the header registration property with UI collection view dot supplementary registration, and we are going to use this element kind initializer, passing UI collection view element kind header, and for the handler the cell will be UI collection view list cell. We don't need this kind, and we will be needing this index path. Okay, first we need to retrieve the section array from the section characters property using the index path dot section. Now we need to retrieve the default content configuration. In this case, we can just use the cell default content configuration, and we can assign the content text property using the, actually this is not section array, it should be a section character struct, and we are going to use the header title text property to set the text. This will return the name of the section as well as the total characters in that particular section. And finally, we need to set the cell content configuration with the new content. That's it for the header registration assignment. Now we need to configure the list layout to use a supplementary header. Navigate to the list layout here, and in here we need to set the UI collection list configuration header mode. Looks like this is a struct. We need to change this to a property, and let me show you the other options. And as you can see, we have the supplementary, which we can use when we want to use a supplementary header view, and also none and first item in section. This is useful if we want to use an outline with expandable and collapsible sections. In this case, we just want to use the supplementary view for the header. Okay, now there are additional methods that we need to override here, which is the collection view, supplementary view for supplementary of kind at index path. Here we need to get a header using the collection view, configured reusable supplementary, passing the header, registration, and the index path. And finally, we need to return it. Let's try to build again and run the live preview. Click on the resume button. Let's try to interact with this. Now we have the section headers rendered properly. Looks nice. Okay, now let's move on to implement the navigation list style changes at the runtime. For updating the list appearance at the runtime, we just need to add the implementation here inside the segment change selector. Here we can just use the switch statement on the segmented control selected segment index, and for 0 we're going to set the list appearance property with inside group. For default, we're going to set it as sidebar, and for case 1 we're going to set it as plain. For case 2 it will be grouped. And finally, to update the layout, we just need to invoke the collection view layout invalidate layout. As you can see here, it already invoked the segmented control at viewDid load to add the target selector. We just need to build again and run. Now let's try to tap on the segmented control. Good. Just updating the list style to plain, grouped, and sidebar. As you can see, whenever we invalidate the layout, this section provider closure will be invoked, and here we will construct the list config again, passing the latest list appearance, and return the collection layout section list with the new list style. Okay, before I wrap up the video, I want to show you one more thing, which is the cell accessory support inside the list cell. Now I want to add support to add a checkmark whenever character is selected. It will have a multiple selection support. So to do that, we need to declare a selected characters property, and we are going to store it inside a set data structure. It will be character that we will store. Character itself already conforms to the hashable, so it will provide unique value inside the set. And navigate to the cell registration closure at the bottom. We're going to check if the self.selected characters set contains the character and the else block. If it contains the character, we are going to assign the cell accessories with first we're going to use checkmark, and next I want to show you that we can also display a disclosure indicator, and for the else block we are going to only show a single disclosure indicator. Okay, next we need to handle whenever the user tap on the cell using the delegate, which is the collection view with select item at index path. Here we just need to retrieve the character from the section characters struct using the index path section, and inside the characters using the index path item. We're going to check if the set contains the item? If yes, then we are going to remove it using this remove member, passing the item. If not, then we're going to insert it, passing the item. And at last, we just need to invoke the collection view, perform batch updates. We don't need the completion. Here we just need to use collection view, reload items, passing the index path in the array. Okay. Now let's try to build and run. Click on resume. Okay. Let's try to tap on several cells. Nice. Let's try to deselect. Nice. It just works. Aside from the accessory support inside the list cell, the API also provides the swipe action support. Okay, that's it for this video. I hope this will help all of you to understand how to implement lists in collection view with the new UI collection view list cell and content configuration list API. If you like this video, please thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Stay tuned, and in the next video, we're going to explore about the new Dippable Data Source API as the data part of the modern collection view architecture. So, until then, let's keep the lifelong learning goes on. Bye!